And very good morning and welcome on this sunny Tuesday morning to a Tuesday preview of Newton Abbot's card. That's one of these tea time cards, kicks off at 3:50 this afternoon. Nice little 8 race card, no 9, no 10. We're not still going into the night, thankfully. And it finishes at 7:30 tonight. Loaded with handicaps towards the end of the card. We'll catch up with those shortly, but this is a nice card to have. I thought there were 2 or 3 bets on the card, so I thought I'd share my thoughts with you this morning. 3:50 kick off with a maiden hurdle at over 2 miles, 2.5 furlongs, and another 102 yards on top of that. So you're effectively looking at 2 miles and 3 furlongs, and that's important. That's important because one of the first 3 in the betting, he says, getting his words out, is Horridge Storm. Rod Millman's. The yard are going okay, but I have major concerns about Horridge Storm staying this far, because effectively you're looking at a horse here who, useful as he is on the flat, he's rated high 70s. They tried him over 10 furlongs, he doesn't get 10. He just about at a push gets a mile, but really he's a 7 furlong horse. And with that in mind, I've got genuine doubts, stamina doubts about Horridge Storm getting round. And in a race where there aren't that many you can fancy, and you can knock holes as well in the other ones at the front. I mean, Horse Force 1, this will only be his third run in 3 years, effectively. He looked quite useful back in 2017 when he mopped a couple of bumpers up, and then he got overturned at 4-7 in a maiden hurdle. We didn't see him out for well over 2 years until he was third at Exeter in a race that should throw up some winners this season. He was third to hang in there, and then he disappointed again in January of this year behind Sir Ivan. It's sort of easy to say, well, possibly the soft ground there was against him, and the combination of the trip, but equally, given these big absences on his CV, he's clearly not been the easiest to train. He's had some issues, and you're being asked to take 8-11 about him. So that doesn't make a lot of appeal either. Then you've got Sufi, who's third in at 5-1. Again, sort of low 70s, wants quick ground on the flat. But he's only won 1 race. I think he's won from 30, I think it was, something like that. So, and he hasn't jumped a hurdle in public. So all in all, there are reasons to try and take the front 3 on here. And thankfully, we've got a ready-made alternative to the front 3, and a horse that a couple of times Daily Punt readers will know I mentioned last season as a horse that this season is one to watch, I think, in Zulu. Gail Haywood's. I think this could be quite a nice horse, this, over hurdles. He showed a bit when he was third here to Valentino Dancer at a whopping price. It wasn't a bad run, that. And then he improved on that when he was 5th to Getaway Fred at Chepstow. Again, staying on nicely from midfield, doing some decent late work. And although he's got beaten 20 odd lengths in the end. Look at you look at the horses that beat him that day. Nautical Star, he's rated in the 120s now. Cap de Mathan, who's gone on, and I think he's rated in the 130. He won last time with him. He's rated in the 130s. Shang Tang, who progressed a bit, and he was thought good enough to try a grade 3 at Kempton on his final start this year. And Getaway Fred, of course, who's continually progressed last season, and he tried his hand at the Cheltenham Festival. Yes, he was outclassed at the festival, but he was thought good enough to have a go, and he's rated in the 130s. So that day Zulu was beaten by 4 horses that are all now rated high 120s and above. He's on a mark of 105. Now, this isn't a handicap. Which sort of, the mark's sort of irrelevant. Can he win the race is the question. I think what I'm trying to say is a mark of 105. He's definitely on the lean side for him when he does go handicapping. They dropped him he got dropped £3 for his run at Wincanton in soft ground, where he didn't jump very well, but there might have been excuses that day. He got put off a bit at the first, and I just wonder whether he sort of frightened himself a little bit. So I'm happy to sort of forgive that. If he's fit, that's the question. We haven't seen him since February, but if he's fit, I think he's almost certain to be in the 3 here. I really do. He's just got to stand up to be in the 3. And he's around about a 12-1 chance. If you ran this 12 times, would he win it once? Definitely. He definitely would. So I like his each way chances there. I know it's sort of thieving a little bit, and it's each way thievery and all that against the front 3, but still, I'd have him shorter. I could not have him any bigger than about a 7-1 chance to actually win this outright. And I think you're getting tremendous each way value for the place part of the bet here. You really are. So I'll come back to Zulu because there's another one a bit later on as well. I fancy, and I quite like the idea of chucking the pair of them in a dirty each way double. So we'll come back. 425 is the second half of. It's not a second half of this at all. It's a novice hurdle, maiden hurdle, over 2 mile 2, and it's not a race I particularly want to get involved with. You've got a few here that are making their debuts over hurdles. Smarter would be quite interesting. I think possibly wants slightly slower ground than he's going to get today. Smarter, I don't know, but he was useful on the flat, and similarly Celestial Force, the two good horses, and they're both coming up against Chazza, who was put in his place when we last saw him by North of the Wall at Hereford. That was back in March, but had looked quite good the time before that when hosing up in a bumper at Bangor on heavy ground. So I think the front three are the right three, but in what order you'd have them in, I don't know. I'm happy to pass it over. 5 o'clock is 2 mile 5.5 again. Had the distances on it, 2.6 effectively, handicap hurdle. It's quantity rather than quality. I think if this was sort of 2-2, I might be with Night Commander, but I'm not really sure that Night Commander wants this trip. 2.5, 2.6. I think stretches his stamina a bit. It seemed to do what you talked to 2 runs back, where he travelled as well as anything into the race and then just didn't finish his race off. Now, I sort of put that down half and half to the trip and half to the fact that he'd not run for best part of a year. But he didn't really go on from that at Stratford last time. He was a bit disappointing, I thought. Again, he weakened out a bit late, and that was over 2 mile. And his overall strike rate just isn't that great anyway, to be perfectly honest. He's about 2 from 40 odd, I think. Just get the stat back up. I know when I was looking last night, 2 from 49, and you're being asked to take 9-2 about him, which doesn't make a great deal of appeal. Not when you consider Freddie Fanatapan, who's only had 2 handicap starts, won the first of them nicely at Uttoxeter, despite the fact that he was pushed wide off the final bend. He was absolutely spun 8 and 9 wide, and you thought, well, that's his chance gone. But actually, once he straightened up in the home straight and tackled them from 2 out, he always looked like the winner to me. And then didn't quite seem to get 3 mile at Uttoxeter last time. Again, he sort of came there with half a chance, bundled. It looked like he was getting tired. He bundled the last and then just got tired on the running, and ended up getting beaten 14 lengths. But it still wasn't a bad effort. And I think dropping back in trip a little bit on a slightly tighter track is going to suit Freddie Fanatapan. Given he's only had 2 handicap starts and there's a lot more to come from him, you would hope. He's a 7-2 chance against 9-2 for Night Commander, who, as I say, has had no end of chances and only won 2 of them. So I think it's a really good chance again for Freddie Fanatapan to get off and get another win on the board. Of those that were bigger prices, nothing particularly made appeal. I looked at the Last Melon. Some firms are playing first 4. It wasn't disastrous from the Last Melon behind Callum Gilhooly here last time over this trip, and it wasn't his first decent run either at around this trip. He ran okay in a novice handicap hurdle at Stratford a couple of years ago at 2.6 as well. There might be a very bad race in him somewhere down the line. He's off a very low mark. He could fall into the 4. The Last Melon, you'd want a big price about him. I mean, he's a sort of 40-50 chance now, and you'd want all that given his overall record, but he could fall into the 4. But Freddie Fanatapan's the one I like there. And the 5:30 was a race initially when I looked at, I thought, I don't think I want to play this, but maybe on a second look again this morning, I'm here is going to be one of the favourites for this after his second to Après Le Deluge at Southwell. He made most that day, and I think he's probably going to get an easy lead again here. Most of these, to varying extents, like to be held up, and the fact that he's going up 6 furlong in trip probably won't be a bother. He won a point to point back in 2018 and basically has been just sort of given time, I think. So the step up in trip isn't going to bother him, but I wonder whether he might set it up for Glanville's Guest, who's, I thought, ran all right at Stratford off a break last time. Was 4th to Tellart, got beaten 13 lengths, but gave the impression there that he was just short of a run. So from 2 out he found it hard going, and then he weakened from the last. And I just think he's off a mark of 115 here, which is £4 higher than when he won here over course and distance last year. But he won so easily that day. You could call him the winner from a long way out when he beat Dr. Luck here. That I don't think a mark of 115 is going to bother him. If he comes on for that run, I just think he's going to have this set up for him. I think he's probably the most likely winner. It's a tough race because there's others you can give chances to. Story of Friends shaped a bit better at Utoxeter last time, behind Vancouver. And Fact of the Matter, of course, is a classy animal over fences, and he's trying to take advantage of a lower handicap mark over hurdles here. James Snowden Yard, south like scalded cats through July and into August, and they've just gone a little bit quieter. Not sure. I don't know. But he's only a 7 to 2 chance. I think it's Glanville's Guest's turn to win again tonight. I think he's on that makes the most appeal there. 6 o'clock, 3 mile 2 handicap chase, where you're almost guaranteed a pace here because you've got Mr. Mafia, who pretty much knows only one way, and that's to go off in front. And similarly, Oberson as well, who had a go at making most at Utoxeter last time, but just found Compadre too good. You can make it. There's 8 in the race, and you can, in some way, shape or form, make a case for almost everything in the race. Captain Books has only had a couple of chase starts, and you'd think there's more to come. I was a little bit disappointed with him behind Seddon at Cartmel. I thought he'd probably do a bit better than that, but we'll see. Ronover's been a little bit disappointed when he gets cheap pieces. Gangster for Warren Gretrix is starting to look nicely handicapped now on the best of his form, although he probably wants slightly softer ground than this. And Delarca, of course, old Delarca, the old Delarca would pick them up and carry them off of 126. The one I like, though, is Plantagenet, here off a mark of 122. Mainly on the grounds of, I think the mark's absolutely fine, the trip's ideal, ground should be spot on, but it's his record after a break that sort of really catches the eye. Initially, I looked at last season, and he's got 2 really good runs in the autumn. He had a warm-up at Fontwell, where he got beaten 8 lengths by doing fine, and then from there went to Cheltenham for the amateur riders race and got beaten 3 lengths by Petite Power. Since then, his form went right off. He was made favourite for a race at Sandown, never picked a leg up, never travelled, awful effort. Similarly at Taunton the time after, in February, he's given a couple of months off and tried again in February, and that wasn't a great effort either. So you're sort of thinking, is he a horse to sort of catch fresh, an autumn horse? And you look at the season before and the season before that, and it sort of bears it out, although he did carry his form through the majority of 2018 pretty well into the spring. But certainly his record fresh is very, very good. As I say, last season, first time up after a 171-day break, he was second to doing fine. Year before, in 2018, he was third to Heppiger, got beaten 5 lengths. And the year before, on his first run for Seamus Mullins, he won by a short head at Bangor. So he can clearly go well after a break. And if he picks his feet up here, as I say, I think a mark of 122 is more than workable. I like his chance here. 8 to 1 is a very fair price for him in a race, as I say, where it's a bit of a dice roll, you can give more of a squeak. So in the hope that he's best caught fresh again tonight, I'll row him in Plantagenet. The handicap hurdle that follows doesn't make that much appeal. There's a couple of question marks for me. One, whether Ferrobin will do it again in cheap pieces. He tried to doss it away even in cheap pieces at Fontwell last time. He's not the most reliable, I don't think, of horses, and you can see from the number of times he's been beaten at short prices throughout his career, he isn't one to totally rely on. And equally, Montrestal, who's really interesting, beat Caldestan first time up at a big price at Chepstow. Off the back of that was made favourite for the juvenile hurdle at Cheltenham in November, one of the trials, but ran awfully. Never picked a leg up, well beaten. And similarly at Taunton the next time, ran flat. Now, we haven't seen Montestor for 560 days, but the fact that they're even bothering to bring him back suggests that there's still something there to be had. And if that's the case, then obviously a mark of 133 is very much on the lenient side if you want to take the beating of Keldestan quite literally, and there's no reason you shouldn't. So he could pick this lot up and drop him. He's in a first-time tongue tie. He's clearly had issues. It's an interesting race, but I think a race I'd rather watch than have a bet in. However, that's not the case with the last two races, where I'm quite interested in a couple. The 7 o'clock, 2 mile 5 handicap chase, and again, there's a bit to add on to that. I think there's about 90 odd yards, 82 yards to add on. So there you go. So you're heading towards 2 mile 5 and a bit, 2 mile 5 and a half. A race that I really want to have a go in, because the front three here, for varying reasons, are all very beatable. J-Track Parkhomes has been put in as favourite. He's been disappointing to me, J-Track Parkhomes. I saw him a couple of years ago at Sandown, and I thought he'd really be a decent sort of 130 plus horse. That's not happened. He just hasn't progressed at all, I'm afraid, over hurdles. He's got the size for fences, definitely got the size for fences. He's a great big angular gelding. But they tried him over fences in January. I didn't think his jumping was that great. He was slower to couple. He hung all over the place. He's definitely got some issues, J-Track Parkhomes. He's hard to win with. There'll be races with him off this mark, sure, but I ain't taking 2 to 1 about him. Then you've got 90210, who, well, which 90210 shows up? The one at Southall that won by 10 lengths, absolutely hosed up that day and looked a horse to follow. Turned out a week later, and then was basically beaten after 4 fences, and eventually pulled up. He was made odds on there. So which is it? If the first one turns up, he'll probably win. If the second one turns up, he'll be done for with a circuit to go again. So, and he's now off his higher mark. His new mark's kicked in as well. It's off 117. That's £13 higher than when he won at Southall. So he's on a recovery mission. He's got something to prove as well. And then you've got Blue and Yellow at the bottom, who's a 7 to 2 chance. And I've made mention of Blue and Yellow on numerous occasions. It's just not a particularly and just not one to get enthused about, to be honest. The race he was second in at Southall last time absolutely fell apart. There were a couple of early fallers that were well fancied, and then Mounts Cross fell when he was clear, and we ended up with 4 finishers, and he still couldn't beat Kitty's Light, and Kitty's Light ran okay at Sedgefield last week. Was second to River Frost. The form's all right, but it's just all right. That's all it is. And he's beatable as well. So all in all, when I looked at the race, I thought I want to try and take these 3 on. And I think Dreambolt, again, you need the dead 8 to stand up here. I think that's a key. You do want the 8 to line up, but I think if Dreambolt lines up, you'll have a job to kick this out of the frame. If you go back in time, he's a course and distance winner. He's on a mark of 109 here, which looks more than fair. He's put in 2 decent efforts since the resumption of racing. He was second to Be Bold, and the improving Be Bold at Stratford, and then didn't get beaten far the time after, although he only finished 4th or 5. He was beaten under 5 lengths, and he was sticking to it at the end. Another sort of 300 yards, and he might have got himself involved. I think with all that, and the fact that, as I say, conditions are absolutely ideal for him, I think if he stands up, he's got a real good chance of getting in the frame here. And again, if he's been putting around about 11, 12 to 1, and I think that's fair. If you ran it 11 times, would he win it once? Again, yes, I'm sure he would. So the way I'm looking at playing him and Zulu is in a couple of each-way singles and an each-way double. But we are going to need that 8 to stand up. So try and leave it as late as you can. Make sure that before Zulu's race that the 8 is still in this race. If one comes out after that, there's nothing you can do. But I think an each-way double on those 2 might pay dividends. He says, hopefully. 7:30, another quantity rather than quality race to finish off with. 2 mile 1 handicap hurdle. Plenty of firms are paying first 5 on this. A couple of obvious ones, of course, in Selling All the Time, who's been in the frame last 3 runs. Mark Usher's Yard, still in form. I know I made mention of it on the Daily Punt about a month ago, that he was starting to have some horses run really well at big prices, and since then he's done ever so well. He's had winners at big prices left, right, and centre, and he had a forecast up at Lingfield last week as well. So there's no reason that Selling All the Time won't run his race course, and he ran well over course and distance a couple of starts back. Ever so cool for Dan Skelton's been very well back this morning. First run in the handicap. Hod goes on. Better effort at Bangor last time behind Mercy and Prince. Blindingly obvious. But I liked one here at a price. And the one I liked at a price is a bit, you got to go a bit further down the handicap. But Rocket Ronnie for Adrian Wintle. And there's a yard that's found a bit of form all of a sudden. Look at Adrian's last half dozen runners or so. A couple of winners in there. Tower Fock not beaten far at Lingfield. That yard's hit form. And I thought Rocket Ronnie gave some notice that he might be on the way back at Stratford last time when he was 5th to Glendon. Got beaten 14 lengths there, but he was still there between 2 out and 1 out. Only really gave best from the last week, and from there. That was his second run back from an absence. He should be cherry ripe now. Mark of 86. Guess what his last winning mark was? Yep, 86. And he's won over the track, and he handles Newton Abbot absolutely fine. He's already a course winner here. So I think he's got a fair bit going for him here. And as I say, you're getting a price. Is anybody going 20s? Anybody going 20s, 5 places? Let's have a quick look before we wrap up. Well, you can get 20s, but you can only get 4 places. 20 to 1, 4 places with Bet365 if you've still got an account. Well done if you have. There we go. So some interesting racing tonight, and I think there are a few races to chuck a few quid at and see if we can find a winner somewhere down the line. I will probably be back later in the week because on Friday, is it Friday? Got Sedgefield on Friday, and I think there's a Southwell meeting as well later on in the week. It might be, Thursday. So I'll definitely be looking at that. So Southwell Thursday and Sedgefield Friday, and I'll try and do some videos for those as well. Thanks a lot. Have a good day.